All right, so I'm going to do a differences versus video here. And pardon me, I'm sucking on a halls here because of cold business. So you have to bear with that. But the Star Wars Wizards of the Coast card game versus the Star Wars Unlimited card game. Now, there's in the Star Wars Unlimited card game, the more I play it, the more there's a couple of similarities to the Star Wars TCG back in the day. So, first of all, Star Wars Unlimited has your character hero, your ground area, and your space area. Almost similar to Star Wars TCG Wizards of the Coast card game that has a character area, a ground area, and a space area. So you can see kind of the similarities there. The only thing with Star Wars Unlimited is they changed the character arena to pretty much having a hero and your outpost as kind of like a opening, like they come and play right at the start of the game. The winning conditions of both are different. So in Star Wars Unlimited, you have to blow up your opponent's outpost. In Star Wars TCG, you have to control 2 of 3 areas to win the game, meaning that there's no units in 2 out of 3 areas that your opponent has, and you have units in those areas. That means you win the game. Both card systems, you don't lose if you have no deck. You play out as is. So that's an interesting aspect there because some trading card games, your deck, when you run out of cards, you can A, lose the game or what have you. Star Wars Unlimited kind of has a little bit of that. If you run out of cards in your deck, if you go to draw a card, you take 3 damage to your outpost, from my understanding of those rules. So there's a penalty for not having cards in your deck. Whereas Star Wars TCG does not have that. Um, Locations are in Star Wars TCG. They were cards that you actually played, putting them into the different areas or arenas. Um, Outposts is kind of like that, where there's some outposts in Star Wars Unlimited that have nothing. Most of them have nothing. Some of them have action abilities or epic actions that you can do what have you. With any new sets that come out, that's probably going to be something to look at there. Star Wars TCG has pilots, like characters that you can put onto your ships, your starfighters, and sometimes your capital ships, and of course TIE fighters, to boost that card in various ways. Star Wars Unlimited has pilots that do the same thing. Um, Round units and space units are similar, except Star Wars TCG has a speed mechanic where it determines what units attack first to last. Star Wars Unlimited, what the player actions do, it goes back and forth between the players in actions and attacks and so forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So there's kind of that. Let me think. Events in Star Wars Unlimited play pretty much like battle cards in the TCG game, where you play them if you are able to. Except battle cards use force to pay for costs. Star Wars Unlimited uses resources to pay for costs. Star Wars TCG has a build system, so the way cards come into play, it doesn't have a resource system per se. It has a build system where you roll a dice at the start of every round, put X amount of points on your cards to play them or build them, it's called in the game. Star Wars Unlimited, to get cards out, you have to pay resources to play those cards. Um, what else? The difference is really is Star Wars Unlimited is simplified, whereas Star Wars TCG kind of can throw people off because it's a little more tactical. You got dice rolling involved. There's multiple mechanics. Like there are keywords in Star Wars Unlimited, but they're simplified. Star Wars TCG goes a little bit further with keywords, evasions, paying for force, paying for cards that way. Pardon my picture going dark again. I really hope to get a better camera in the future, but I'm poor. um, oh, but that's kind of like a real difference between the two card games, where Star Wars Unlimited could have more players coming to it because of the simplicity of it. Where the Wizards of the Coast TCG of Star Wars, it lasted a while, but eventually turned players off. And I will say that the light side cards, a lot of them became overpowered, and then it like kind of switched from the light side to the dark side of some cards being overpowered. So you can make an overpowering deck if you have a lot of cards. Kind of fell into the same trap the Magic the Gathering has fallen into, or can fall into, where I feel Star Wars Unlimited, I feel so far is more balanced in terms of back and forth confrontations. And again, the simplicity of it makes it more appealing because people don't want to think. Where I'm different, I prefer the Star Wars TCG more for the tactical side of games, like unit placement and going back and forth and kind of trying to figure out how to best your opponent by taking 2 or 3 arenas. Star Wars Unlimited, well, cool, is more like attack the outpost, attack the outpost, attack the outpost. Like you could just like put cards in play, attack the outpost. Hopefully, you get enough damage on the person's outpost to win. There are cards that you can attack other opponents and units, sure, but there are cards that you could also put in where it like exhausts your opposing unit. You can make like an exhaust deck. One thing I really like about Star Wars Limited, I have to say, over the TCG format, is that there are more deck options to play with, especially with the new sets coming out. I can't remember what the new set coming out is called, but I think something Outlaws, which is going to be introducing credits. I watched a video on this a couple days ago, and the whole idea of credits is you can use those as resources for like one-time payments of cards. You can't use them for your hero if you're following with the rules, of course. So I like that aspect where it's kind of innovating like different things. Where Star Wars TCG, its falter near the end was there were deck combinations you could do, but ultimately a lot of people went with kind of the same characters, the same deck builds, and a lot of it was like, um, at least in the kind of local tournaments and stuff. From what I saw, is that they were going like with the dark side. You would always have Vader. You would always have Darth Sidious. Or if you were going with bounty hunters, you always had Boba Fett, and you counter that also with like a dark Jedi or something, make it strong. And with the light side, you went Luke Skywalker and Mace Windu and Yoda. Those were killer on the light side, especially if you had the really good versions of those characters. Which I'm not going to go too much into detail on the rules, but like the fast, short end of it is you could have Luke Skywalker A, Luke Skywalker B, and you can like put them on top of each other, boosting their stats, which was really cool. You can only have 4 in a stack of that same character. That's the way the TCG worked for characters anyway. Some ground units, some space units did that, but it was mostly character units that you could stack more than that. Of course, if you're going with like homemade cards, which there is a website for the TCG, which is cool. There is obviously a lot more, of the same character, like different cards, obviously, to add to that to your decks, right? But as a whole, as the regular game, that was basically how it went. Uh, the light side had, I believe, stronger ground units, where some were just overpowered. Like there was, I remember one ground unit, I can't remember what it was. You basically exhaust it or tap it, and I think it either did 2 damage directly or it healed 2 damage from anything. It was something like that. And then there was a Yoda card in the character arena that could be in a particular, like a retreat area, they call it in the game, where you could basically just heal all day. Uh, in the space arena, a lot of the light side starfighters had nasty, like it's called critical hits, and the dark side did have the Death Star, which was like a gargantuan space unit. Um, it really depends if you're playing casual. Like you can make fun decks. Like not all of them were overpowered, but you kind of can see the imbalance at times for either side, just from my descriptions on how that went. Where Star Wars Unlimited so far doesn't seem to have that. It's kind of a nice back and forth flow between the light side, dark side deal. But one thing I like about the TCG is that it specifically had dark side cards, light side cards, and neutral cards, where Star Wars Unlimited goes on this icon or aspect system, where as long as you have the aspect symbols, you can put those kind of cards in the deck, and that can be dark side characters in a light side deck if possible. Which I'm kind of like Aura's saying in a light side deck. I don't see that. It's just like breaking lore for me, but whatever. I didn't make the game, but it's cool for those who really like that. But I'm like a purist, I guess. But that's really kind of like the differences between the two games. And I think I'll finish the video off by saying what I like and dislike about both. We're gonna start with Star Wars Unlimited. I like the ebb and flow, the flow of back and forth between the players, as I mentioned. I like the quick, fast tempo that Star Wars Unlimited goes because it doesn't last as long as the TCG version of Star Wars. Um, the resource method is a little different, but I like how you can actually play your cards from your hand as resources. So it's not like Magic where you have your lands and that's it. It's kind of borrowing from Warcraft, the card game, and there are other games that have done that where you can use cards from your hand to put down as resources. So you never get real basically screwed for playing cards that sense. So that's really cool. Um, I like how the pilot cards work and the upgrade works. There are equipment cards in TCG that kind of act like upgrades in Star Wars Unlimited. So there's another thing. Um, I like how there's different combinations of deck types you could use in Star Wars Unlimited. There's quite a bit more than the TCG had. Um, I think for me, though, a negative with Star Wars Unlimited is that it's too simplified. Like, I like the back and forth between the players and kind of that sort of tactical deal. You could kind of look at it that way. But I find that I'd rather have more meat to the game. I mean, perhaps in later sets they'll add some stuff like TCG did that. Originally, a TCG version of Star Wars card game, they added location cards and equipment cards later in sets. They didn't have those right in the beginning, and then some keywords, of course. But Star Wars Unlimited, I think, is a pretty cool game, and I hope it continues and gains momentum, and it's a really fun game. So over to Star Wars TCG. It's my favorite of the two. Um, I love the build system in it. I like the tactical kind of way you play the game where you're kind of like trying to guess and build units for these arenas, the three arenas. I like the three arenas as opposed to the two arenas in Star Wars Unlimited. I like the winning condition a bit more in Star Wars TCG, where you have to conquer two or three areas, and games here can last a while. Like there are games that can like end very quickly because you get screwed in your build phase at the beginning of the game. Um, but you can have games that can last a while because it's kind of back and forth between the light side and the dark side and so forth. I really like the stacking method system there in the Star Wars TCG, where you can have like Boba Fett, and you could put three other Boba Fett cards of different Boba Fett's. Okay, they call them by letters, A, B, C, D, whatever, and you could boost their stats. You could do that with some of the ground units. You could do that with some of the space units. Like I think Anakin's Starfighter, I think, has two or three versions of it that you can stack to buff it. And what I like too is that with the stacks of four, you can say you like the Boba Fett card, that's one of them that's beneath the top Boba Fett card. You can switch it out during your build step. You know, I know these rules might not make sense to some of you, but it's cool to have that option there. Some of the deck builds are there, so they do have deck builds. Like you can make a kind of healing deck. You can make a bounty hunter deck. You can make a strictly dark side deck. You can make a trooper deck. So there are options for deck builds, but there's not too many as much as Star Wars Unlimited, I find. So that's kind of a drawback there for the TCG. Also, a negative against the TCG is that there are overpowered cards within the game, both on the dark side and the light side, that break a game. Like once these cards out, if you don't kill them, then they become such a nuisance. For instance, there is a keyword in, I believe it was added in later sets, called Lucky. And it's Han Solo, I think, that has that primarily on his cards, but I think there's equipment and stuff that gives a unit that keyword. And what lucky is that, let's say it's lucky 2. So what that means is that whenever you roll to attack with your dice, and that's how this game works with units, is let's say you have a Pawn Solo has 4 attack dice and he rolls 4 of them, and let's say he scores 1 hit, okay, from the 4 dice he rolls. Well, with lucky 2, he can re-roll those 2 misses again, and that's for attack. On the same side of things, whenever someone's attacking Han Solo, he can force the person to re-roll 2 of the dice coming at him. Oh my god! And to combine that with like cards on the light side that heal, it's a brutal deck to play against, because you have to look at Han Solo being a threat, and then you have to look at the healing cards being a threat, and then if there's the Yoda character, I can't remember what version it is, in out of zone that can heal. It's brutal to face, and it's broken as hell. On the dark side, they have like some overpowered cards as well that um, boost attack power and so forth and so on. So on both sides of the field, there are some very overpowered cards that can just make decks kind of broken. So that's a negative against the game itself, which is unfortunate. But you can build simplified decks that are just basic, and still have fun with it. Um, I love the way the mission cards work in it. They're kind of like cards you can keep built in play, not revealed, and they do different things when you do reveal them during your build step, that do various things, and you could have some fun with those. Really like those cards. It's a mystery there. You could also be a mystery on like what you're building. Is he building a unit? Is he building a mission card? Kind of thing. The battle cards are really cool too because there's some really good ones too that can really help elongating the game, kind of like preventing damage and stuff on both sides. Um, the dark side does have some cool ones that are almost a requirement there that instantly destroy speeders or anything because the light side has some nasty speeders and starfighters. So regardless of the overpowered cards within it, there's still a lot of cards that aren't overpowered that are fantastic and cool, and all the characters from like at the time, especially the first six films in the original sets, they have everybody in there, which is really nice and really cool. Um, I guess you could say the final negative of that is that Star Wars TCG can run a long time, like an hour. I had one game that was an hour and a half just because it was back and forth and really competitive. But for people that want fast, quick game, Star Wars Unlimited will probably be your go to between these two if you happen to be playing the TCG. So both have their good points, both have their negatives. It really depends on like your play style, and you want a fast game or do you want a more tactical game. Um, Again, the reason that Star Wars TCG failed near the end is because it ended up being like Magic the Gathering, where you had the best cards, you kind of win, and a lot of people were playing the same damn decks all the time, and that's kind of like one really pet peeve of mine for like any card game, any TCG. Like it's always the same decks over and over again, and it can be real boring. That's why I like play casual. And tournament wise, like I don't really go for that. I mean, for fun, sure, and casual tournaments at a local store, yeah, but I'm not, I'm not like a big card tournament player. That's not me. Never was. The longevity of the Star Wars TCG, I think, lives on through the website. And I think that's really cool with the community that has kept that card game alive for those that love the card game. It's added its own keywords, it's added its own characters. It's brought in like newer characters like Ray and Finn and Captain Phasma and all those characters there. Whether you love them or hate them, they're there. And I still think that it's really cool that the game continues. And for Star Wars Unlimited, like it's going to be contingent on the popularity that it gets there. I think it can really cater to younger kind of audiences first getting into TCG for a simplified game. I think that it can be popular that way, and I really hope it continues. I could see Star Wars Unlimited, given that it like gets popular, and it depends, especially around here on the area, because unfortunately in the area I'm in, it's strictly Magic the Gathering, and no other card game has any shot, and that's sad. So other areas like Toronto, Ontario, more abroad, better chance of the card game getting popular there and popular in other parts of the world there, and I hope it really does, and I hope it took off when it first came out. From my understanding, it kind of slowed down, but I hope it picks back up again. And because Fantasy Flight Games, unfortunately, their track record of living card games or card games in general has been spotty because Netrunner went out and all that. I've gone into this conversation in the previous video about it, but hopefully it's a win for them, and it would be nice. Arkham Horror, the card game, is still going on as a living card game. I see that, and I'm excited about that. Unfortunately, I've fallen behind by many sets, and I hope to like get the sets that I'm missing and fall behind at some point. But for now, Star Wars Unlimited is the game, and unfortunately, in the hobby store near me, they don't sell Arkham Horror card games at their store. It's unfortunate, so I have to go search online for that stuff. But enough of me rambling. That's just my video on the differences between these two card games. And, if you by chance happen to get hold of any of the Star Wars TCG, or there is a program called Lackey, which they have set up a plugin for that where you can play the Star Wars TCG there. Check out the IDC website for the game, and you'll find it there. But if you're by chance happen to go online and find physical cards, it's really cool to play the game. It's very difficult, I know. They do have uh, eBay's probably your best bet for that, but you're looking to pay quite a penny for them. I'm just saying for that. But on the flip side, Stars Unlimited is available now and is accessible. The first few sets I missed out on, unfortunately, because I'm late to the game on that. Like, there's some really cool cards in those sets, but who knows if I'm able to get it. I got some really cool promos. Um, I got a really cool Soka promo. I got a cool Ground Jango Fett promo. I have them in my binders. Um, so yeah, uh, cool game. Bounce between both, back and forth between the two. It's cool that I can get kind of like my Star Wars fix there in these card games because the live films and shows have just disappointed so hard. So at least I could get my Star Wars fix through these games, which is cool. Anyway, that's my video. Hope you enjoy it. Let me know if you've played Star Wars the TCG and what do you think of it in the comments. Give a like. Let me know like what you really like about Star Wars Unlimited, who your favorite character is. Be interesting to know. What's your favorite deck? I mean, I'm a bounty hunter guy. I like my bounty hunter decks. Always have. Boba Fett's just badass on all levels. I know that he wasn't much of a factor in the live movies, but it was really cool to see him back in The Mandalorian. I got to give him props for that. That scene where he has the armor for the first time in years, and season 2 of The Mandalorian, where he's kicking ass to the stormtroopers. Oh, I love that scene. Like Mandalorian season 1 and 2, despite my nitpicks for it, that honestly was the best Star Wars show they came out with. I'll give Skeleton Crew a little bit because it had that Star Wars feel in there. But man, I love my bounty hunters. So yeah. All right, everyone. Have a good day.